You explain yourself too much. Not in a dramatic way. Not like you're begging. Not like you're weak. But in a quiet way that most people don't notice at first. You justify your tone. You clarify what you meant. You add extra sentences after your point is already clear. You soften your words so no one feels uncomfortable. And you tell yourself it's maturity. You tell yourself, I just want to communicate well. You tell yourself, I don't want misunderstandings. You tell yourself, I'm trying to be respectful. But if we're being honest, there's a deeper reason. It's not just communication. It's fear. Fear of being misunderstood. Fear of being judged. Fear of tension. Fear of rejection. Because every time you over-explain, you're not just giving information. You're trying to control the emotional outcome. You're trying to make sure they don't get upset. You're trying to make sure they don't think you're rude. You're trying to make sure they don't interpret you the wrong way. And that's exactly where the problem begins. Because the moment you start managing other people's perception of you, you surrender your stability. And stability is what people respect. Think about it. Have you ever left a conversation feeling drained, not because the topic was heavy, but because you spent 10 minutes defending a simple decision? You say no, but your no comes with a paragraph. You set a boundary, but your boundary comes with an apology. You make a choice, but your choice comes with reassurance. And here's what happens in real time. The more you talk, the less weight your words carry. Not because the words are wrong, but because the energy underneath them is uncertain. Humans are not only listening to your logic, they are listening to your emotional posture. And emotional posture is everything. When you explain too much, people don't just hear your sentence. They hear the insecurity underneath it. They hear, please understand me. They hear, please don't judge me. They hear, please accept this. You may not be saying those words, but you're communicating them. And the world responds to what you communicate, especially what you communicate unconsciously. This is why some people can say one sentence and command respect, while others say 10 sentences and still get questioned. It's not intelligence. It's not status. It's not luck. It's certainty. And certainty doesn't perform. Certainty doesn't over-explain. Certainty doesn't plead its case. Certainty speaks once, cleanly, and stops. If you've ever felt like people don't take you seriously, listen closely. There's a chance you've been training them not to. And if that hits you, good. That means you're aware enough to change it. Drop a quick I relate in the comments if you've ever caught yourself explaining something that didn't need explaining. Keep it simple. No long story needed. Over-explaining has a hidden cost. Not just emotional exhaustion. Not just wasted breath. It changes your position in the relationship. Every time you over-explain, you teach people something about you without realizing you're teaching them. You teach them your decisions are negotiable. You teach them your no can be softened. You teach them your boundaries require permission. And humans, by nature, test what is flexible. Not always maliciously. Not because they want to hurt you. But because social hierarchy is shaped by pressure. Pressure reveals structure. If your structure holds, people adapt. If your structure bends, people push again. You might think, but I'm just being polite. Here's the difference. Politeness is clarity with respect. Over-explaining is clarity with anxiety. Politeness says, I understand you. Over-explaining says, please don't misunderstand me. One is grounded. The other is defensive. And defense changes how you're perceived. Let's make it obvious. Two people say the same thing. Person A, I'm not available. Silence. Person B, I'm not available, I'm sorry, I've just been really busy and I don't want you to think I'm avoiding you, it's just a lot right now. Which person sounds stable? Which person sounds like their boundary is final? Which person sounds like they could be convinced if you press the right emotional buttons? You already know the answer. When you explain too much, you create negotiation energy, even if you don't mean to. And once negotiation energy enters the relationship, respect starts to leak. Because respect is built on one thing people rarely admit: consistency. Consistency means your words don't change because someone reacts emotionally. Consistency means you don't scramble when questioned. Consistency means your yes and no have weight. Over-explainers often have a pattern. They speak. Someone questions them. They panic internally. They expand. They justify. They add context. They try to win understanding. But here's what this does psychologically. It places the other person in the judge seat. Now the other person is evaluating whether your boundary is acceptable. You might not see it that way, but that's how the dynamic forms. And once someone feels like they're the judge, they behave like the judge. They interrupt more. They question more. They push more. Not because they're evil, because you gave them the position. Let me say something clean. When you keep explaining, you keep proving you can be moved. And people only respect what cannot be moved easily. This is why calm people feel powerful. Not because they are controlling, but because they are not easily controlled. If you're starting to see how this has played out in your own life, comment firm. Just that word. Most over-explaining is not about logic. It's about identity. Because deep down, you want to be understood. You want people to see your intentions. You want them to know you're not a bad person. You want them to interpret you accurately. That desire is human. But it becomes a problem when you begin sacrificing your stability to get it. Here's a hard truth. You can't control interpretation. No matter how many words you add. You could speak perfectly, and someone will still misunderstand you. You could show kindness, and someone will still accuse you of being cold. You could tell the truth, and someone will still project their insecurities onto it. This is why Stoicism matters. Stoicism doesn't teach you to be emotionless. It teaches you to be internally governed. It teaches you to stop living for reactions. Marcus Aurelius had power, status, and influence, and still reminded himself. People will misread you. People will judge you. People will complain. And your job is to remain steady. Because a steady mind is free. Over-explainers are not free. They are attached to approval. They are attached to being seen as good, reasonable, likable, harmless. But respect is not built on harmlessness. Respect is built on self-trust. Self-trust says, I don't need to defend what I know. Self-trust says, my boundary doesn't need a speech. Self-trust says, I can be misunderstood and still be okay. This is not arrogance. It's emotional independence. And emotional independence is one of the most attractive forms of power. Think about the people you respect most. They don't rush to clarify. They don't chase agreement. They don't over-justify every choice. They are not careless. They are contained. Contained energy feels expensive. Uncontained energy feels cheap. And over-explaining is uncontained energy. It spills out because you're trying to fix something that doesn't need fixing. Sometimes you're explaining because the other person genuinely asked. That's normal. But the pattern we're talking about is different. It's when you explain before anyone even requests it. It's when you pre-defend. It's when you anticipate judgment and try to neutralize it. That is anxiety. And anxiety is loud, even when your voice is quiet. Here's a reflection that hits deep. Are you explaining because clarity is needed? Or because you fear being disliked? If it's the second one, you already know what needs to change. If this section just described you, comment truth. That's it. One word. Let's bring this into a setting where respect matters immediately: work. Work is a hierarchy of perception, even when companies pretend it isn't. The person who seems most stable often gets listened to more. The person who seems uncertain often gets questioned more. And over-explaining is one of the fastest ways to sound uncertain, without meaning to. Picture this. You're in a meeting. You propose an idea. Someone challenges you. They say, "Why did you do it that way?" Now notice what many people do. They panic internally. They respond with a long chain of reasoning. "Well, I thought it would be faster, and I didn't want to delay the timeline, and I considered the other option, but I felt like this could work better, and I wasn't sure if." That spiral is deadly, even if your reasoning is correct, because the tone becomes defensive, and defensive tones invite more pressure. Here's what a grounded response sounds like. I chose that approach because it improves efficiency and reduces risk. Stop. If they ask for a follow-up, you answer it once. No extra padding. No self-protection paragraphs. No nervous laughter. No apology for having a point of view. Just clarity. One of the most respected communication styles in any professional environment is this. Short answer. Pause. Optional detail only if requested. Because the pause communicates something. It communicates, "I'm not threatened by your question." It communicates, "I don't need to overprove myself." It communicates, "I trust my decision." And trust is contagious. Now imagine the reverse. Someone questions you and you instantly over-explain. What does that communicate? It communicates, "I'm worried you'll disagree." It communicates, "I'm worried I'll look wrong." It communicates, "I need you to validate my reasoning." Again, maybe you never say those words, but the energy is felt. This is why some people rise quickly in environments. Not because they're better, but because they're calmer. Calm people feel like leaders. Not loud leaders. Stable leaders. Now here's the key. You don't need to become robotic. You can still be warm. You can still be respectful. But you remove the anxious padding. Instead of, "I'm sorry, I just wanted to share," say, "Here's what I recommend." Instead of, "This might be wrong but," say, "Based on the data, this is the best move." That shift alone increases respect. If you've ever felt like you get questioned more than others at work, comment work. I'll know exactly what you mean. Now we make this personal. Because information without application changes nothing. Think about one area in your life where you over-explain the most. Don't pick 5 areas. Pick one. Work? Family? Your partner? Friends? Text messages? Now ask yourself, what are you trying to prevent when you over-explain? Are you trying to prevent conflict? Are you trying to prevent being disliked? Are you trying to prevent someone leaving? Most people over-explain because they fear consequences. But here's what you must understand. You cannot build respect by preventing consequences. You build respect by being able to withstand them. A person who can tolerate tension is powerful, because tension is part of reality. A person who collapses into explanation to erase tension is unstable. And instability, no matter how kind, reduces respect. So what's the first small shift? It's not becoming silent forever. It's not becoming cold. It's not turning into a statue. It's learning to stop after your point is made. That's it. Say your sentence and let it land. Most people don't let their words land. They throw a sentence and immediately chase it with 3 more sentences, afraid the first one wasn't enough. But it was enough. Your job is to trust that. Here's a simple practice you can do today. The 1-sentence boundary. For the next 24 hours, when you say no or set a boundary, do it in 1 sentence. Examples. I'm not available. I can't do that. That doesn't work for me. I'm not discussing that. Then stop. If they ask respectfully, clarify once. But don't defend. Don't apologize for existing. Don't negotiate your own comfort. And watch what happens. At first, you'll feel discomfort, because you're used to filling space. But that discomfort is the exact muscle you need to build. The muscle of stillness. The muscle of self-trust. The muscle of emotional independence. And as that muscle strengthens, respect rises naturally. Not because you demanded it, but because you became stable. If you're ready to practice this, comment 1 sentence. Certainty is not volume. It's not aggression. It's not dominance. It's not speaking over people. Certainty is internal alignment. When your thoughts, emotions, and decisions are aligned, your communication becomes clean, short, grounded. And that grounded energy is what people respond to. Most people think respect is earned through performance, through intelligence, through charisma, through status. But in everyday interactions, respect is often a reaction to stability. The most stable person in the room usually feels the most powerful. Not because they demand control, but because they are not easily moved. Let's break this down psychologically. When someone speaks with certainty, 3 things happen in the mind of the listener. The listener assumes internal clarity. The listener senses low anxiety. The listener detects low neediness. Low neediness increases perceived value. This is not manipulation. It's human psychology. People instinctively assign higher status to those who appear less dependent on approval. When you over-explain, you unintentionally signal dependence. When you speak clearly and stop, you signal independence. And independence creates gravity. Gravity is what pulls attention without effort. Think about the calm person in a tense situation. Everyone is talking. Everyone is reacting. Everyone is emotional. And one person says a sentence slowly and then falls silent. The room shifts. Why? Because calmness under pressure feels rare. And rare feels valuable. Certainty under tension communicates. I am not shaken. That energy is deeply attractive in work, in relationships, in social environments. Now let's turn the mirror back to you. How often do you rush to fill silence after you speak? How often do you add extra clarification because the pause feels uncomfortable? That discomfort is your fear of misinterpretation. But misinterpretation is not fatal. Anxiety is not required. Certainty doesn't mean you're always right. It means you are comfortable standing by your position unless given reason to reconsider. And reconsideration does not require emotional scrambling. It requires calm adjustment. If this idea of internal stability feels new to you, comment steady. Because steadiness is what we're building. Silence makes most people nervous. Why? Because silence removes control. When you speak continuously, you are steering the emotional flow. When you stop speaking, you give the other person space to think. And space creates power. The pause after a statement is where respect is born. Let's explore this socially. Imagine you say, "I don't agree with that." And then you stop. No smile to soften it. No apology. No nervous explanation. Just stillness. Now the other person has two choices. They either respond thoughtfully, or they push harder. But here's what matters. You didn't chase their reaction. Chasing reactions lowers status. Silence forces others to process without your emotional assistance. That's powerful. But here's the uncomfortable part. When you first stop over-explaining, people may react more intensely. Why? Because they are used to you cushioning the interaction. They are used to you absorbing tension. When you remove that pattern, they feel the tension more directly. And sometimes they'll try to provoke you back into your old behavior. This is called recalibration. Whenever you change your communication style, people test the new version of you. They might say, "Why are you being short? Why are you acting differently? You don't care anymore." Notice the manipulation embedded in those statements. They are trying to pull you back into emotional overextension. And if you panic and start explaining again, the old dynamic returns instantly. But if you remain calm and say, "I'm not being short. I've said what I meant," and then stop, you reset the hierarchy. Because silence under pressure communicates control. Not over them. Over yourself. Self-control is the foundation of psychological strength. And the person who can tolerate silence without scrambling will always appear stronger than the person who can't. If you've ever felt silence just to relieve tension, comment pause. Because the pause is where your power lives. Now let's talk about relationships. Because this is where over-explaining becomes most visible. In romantic dynamics, attraction is built on emotional stability. Not perfection. Not mystery games. Stability. When you over-explain in relationships, you often do it from fear. Fear of losing the person. Fear of conflict. Fear of being misunderstood. So you over-text. You over-clarify. You over-apologize. And slowly, you create imbalance. Imagine this scenario. They take hours to reply. Instead of waiting calmly, you send, "Hey, just making sure you're okay. I didn't mean to say anything wrong earlier. If I did, I'm sorry." Now you've revealed anxiety. Even if you didn't need to. Now compare that to this. They take hours to reply. You say nothing. When they respond, you reply normally. No emotional spillover. Which version feels grounded? The person who manages their own emotions quietly will always feel more stable. And stability is attractive. Over-explaining in relationships communicates one hidden message. I need reassurance. And neediness shifts power. This doesn't mean you suppress emotions. It means you regulate them before expressing them. If you need clarity, ask clearly once. But don't spiral. Don't flood. Don't chase. Calmness in uncertainty creates respect. And respect sustains attraction. Let me ask you something uncomfortable. Have you ever explained your feelings repeatedly, hoping the other person would finally validate you? Did that increase attraction or decrease it? You already know the answer. Emotional self-control is more powerful than emotional persuasion. If this section hits you personally, comment control. Because control is internal first. Here's something no one talks about. When you stop over-explaining, people will test you. Not because they hate you, but because humans test boundaries. If you have always been the one who explains, apologizes, and softens, and suddenly you become calm, short, and firm, it disrupts the pattern. Patterns feel safe. When you break one, others feel uncertain. And uncertain people test. They might push harder. They might question more aggressively. They might accuse you of being cold. This is not random. This is recalibration. They are checking. Is this new version permanent? And your response determines everything. If you panic and revert to over-explaining, the test confirms you are still movable. If you stay calm, repeat your position once, and remain steady, the test ends. Because people stop testing what does not bend easily. Let's say someone says, "You're acting differently." Instead of, "I'm sorry, I don't mean to be different, I'm just trying to." You say, "I'm just being clear." And stop. That's it. No justification. No emotional unraveling. That calm consistency is what reshapes dynamics. Here's what you must understand. Change is uncomfortable for everyone involved. Not just you. So when people react to your new firmness, it doesn't mean you're wrong. It means you're different. And difference creates friction before it creates respect. If you're ready to hold steady through that friction, comment hold. Because holding steady is the real transformation. It's an identity shift. Over-explaining is a symptom. The root is self-trust. When you don't trust your decisions fully, you defend them excessively. When you don't trust your boundaries fully, you soften them repeatedly. When you don't trust your value fully, you verbally negotiate it. So the real transformation begins internally. You move from reactive to grounded. Reactive energy responds instantly to discomfort. Grounded energy tolerates discomfort before responding. Reactive people feel the need to fix tension immediately. Grounded people allow tension to exist without panicking. That shift alone changes everything. Think about the version of you that over-explains. That version is scanning constantly. Did they misunderstand me? Are they upset? Did I sound rude? Should I clarify? Now imagine a different internal voice. I said what I meant. They can interpret it how they want. I don't need to adjust unless I choose to. That is emotional independence. And emotional independence is one of the rarest forms of strength in modern life. Most people are externally governed. Their mood shifts based on reactions. Their confidence shifts based on approval. Their communication shifts based on tension. When you become internally governed, you detach from that pattern. You don't chase reassurance. You don't scramble under pressure. You don't overcorrect because someone frowned. You stay aligned. Alignment feels stable. And stability attracts respect. Here's the key realization. When you stop over-explaining, you stop performing for acceptance. And when you stop performing, you start embodying. Embodiment is quiet power. It doesn't need to convince. It doesn't need to persuade. It doesn't need to be oversold. It simply stands. If you're beginning to see this as an identity shift, not just a communication tweak, comment upgrade. Because that's exactly what this is. Now let's clarify something important. Stopping over-explanation does not mean becoming cold. It does not mean suppressing emotion. It does not mean becoming distant or robotic. It means becoming regulated. Coldness is avoidance. Detachment is control. Cold people shut down. Detached people stay steady. There is a difference. When someone speaks to you, you can listen attentively without scrambling to defend yourself. When someone disagrees, you can remain calm without shutting down emotionally. When someone misunderstands, you can choose whether clarification is necessary instead of reacting automatically. That's detachment. Detachment says, "I'm not threatened by this interaction." Coldness says, "I'm withdrawing because I'm overwhelmed." One is strength. The other is defense. We are building strength. You can still be warm. You can still smile. You can still care deeply. But warmth does not require over-explanation. Kindness does not require self-negotiation. Care does not require anxiety. The strongest communicators are those who can express emotion without losing composure. That balance creates maturity. Imagine someone says, "That hurt my feelings." A reactive person might over-explain immediately. "That wasn't my intention, I didn't mean it like that, I would never." A grounded person responds, "That wasn't my intention. Tell me what felt hurtful." Notice the difference. The second response is calm, open, but not defensive. That's strength. And strength feels safe. People respect those who feel safe, because safety signals control. Emotional regulation is the foundation of psychological presence. And psychological presence commands respect without demanding it. If you're realizing that you confused warmth with over-explaining before, comment clarity. Because clarity changes how you show up. Let's integrate everything. You don't need to become short with everyone. You don't need to strip your personality. You need to remove anxiety-driven speech. Here's how you do that practically. First, slow down. Over-explaining is often fast. It rushes to fill space. When you slow your speech, your thoughts organize. Second, separate clarity from justification. Clarity is a statement. Justification is a defense. Clarity, "I can't attend." Justification, "I can't attend because I've been overwhelmed and I don't want you to think I'm." You see the difference. Third, let silence breathe. When you say something firm, don't immediately soften it. Allow the moment to exist. Silence is not hostility. It is composure. Fourth, clarify only when necessary. If someone genuinely asks for more context, give it calmly. But once you've explained once, stop. Do not loop. Do not repeat. Repetition under pressure weakens position. And here's something subtle. People respect those who respect their own time. Over-explaining wastes your own time. And when you treat your words like they're expensive, others will too. Imagine speaking as if each sentence cost something. You'd use fewer, but they would carry more weight. That's how leaders communicate. That's how emotionally regulated people communicate. Short, clear, intentional, and calm. If you're ready to practice intentional speech this week, comment intentional. Because intention is the opposite of reaction. Respect is not forced. It is projected. And projection begins internally. When you stop explaining yourself excessively, you send a silent message. I trust myself. That message is powerful. Because most people don't trust themselves fully. They second guess. They overcorrect. They overtalk. So when someone stands calmly in their own decisions, it stands out. Not loudly, but unmistakably. You don't need to become louder. You need to become steadier. You don't need to convince people. You need to be consistent. You don't need to dominate rooms. You need to remain composed inside them. The person who reacts least under pressure often carries the most influence. The person who tolerates silence best often commands the most attention. The person who doesn't over-negotiate their boundaries often receives the most respect. This isn't about manipulation. It's about mastery. Mastery of emotion. Mastery of speech. Mastery of reaction. And mastery always begins with awareness. Now that you see the pattern, you cannot unsee it. You will catch yourself mid-sentence. You will notice when anxiety wants to add extra explanation. And you'll have a choice. You can continue the old pattern. Or you can stop. Pause. And let your words stand. That pause will feel uncomfortable at first. But over time, it will feel natural. And eventually, it will feel powerful. Because silence is not emptiness. Silence is control. If this shifted something in you, comment steady. Let that be your reminder. And remember, this channel is not about controlling others. It's about controlling yourself. And the moment you control your need to be understood by everyone, you become understood by the right people automatically. Certainty commands attention. Composure commands respect. And respect follows those who no longer feel the need to explain their existence.